uncorrupted communication.
I see subalternity as a position without identity. It's somewhat like the strict understanding of class, which is why it's a bit strange when clearly upwardly mobile academics, sometimes with graying ponytails and guts falling over their blue jeans, will come up and say, celebrate their working class origins. What is that? That's not what, strictly speaking, class formation is. Subalternity, to an extent, is that kind of a thing. No one can say, I am a subaltern, in whatever language. So to that extent, and I think the relationship, I don't want to just go on talking about this, so I'll just make a little analogy and move on to the body of the talk. I think the relationship between the subaltern and the popular may well be somewhat like the relationship between class and poverty, or race and color, or gender and sex, that kind of structuring, yes? So to my mind then, subalternity remains something that you don't establish again and again by recounting in a certain sort of positivist historical way the details of the practice of disenfranchised groups. That's one of my things. And then I would also say that I did not really come to the subaltern from Gramsci. I read Gramsci separately. I gave the essay, the paper, Can the Subaltern Speak?, under the title Power and Desire in 1983. I've been looking at the essay a bit more, and what I have noticed is that whatever I wrote at the time of revision, I was already using the more specific sense of without access to the lines of social mobility in the piece, Can the Subaltern Speak? Subaltern in the sense of without access to the lines of social mobility, rather than the name of a difference. And the example was a woman. That was Can the Subaltern Speak? What remained, however, in place was the designation of subaltern studies as questioning colonial, nationalist, as well as Marxist historiography. Subalternity, therefore, for me, has also always been, I gave you the first sense, in binary opposition to the nation-state, as it is now to the so-called international civil society, which Shell mentioned. For me, there are no subaltern nations, to quote Hart and Negri, and the subalternism, to quote my dear friend Homi, the subalternism of the contemporary NGO culture and world governance enthusiasts is a recoding and re-territorialization of the US doctrine of manifest destiny. The problems that emerged out of Can the Subaltern Speak were A, the problem of subjectship and agency, and B, the call to build infrastructure in the colloquial, not the Marxist sense, so that agency would emerge. In this particular context, I have heard people say that I propose sati as resistance against the British. I think anybody who actually has read the piece will see that I say again and again that the abolition of sati was an unquestioned good. The piece is as critical of the Hindus as it is really not critical of the British reform. All that it is trying to say is that since subject formation was not, woman's subject formation was not touched by this reform, it could not last. And this particular conviction is with me still. I saw agency as institutional validation, whereas subject formation exceeds the borders of the intending subject, to put it brutally briefly. And I saw reproductive heteronormativity as the broadest global institution. In the interim years, what has happened is the subaltern has become greatly permeable. The subaltern is now permeable, but there is no permeability in the opposite direction, except through appropriations for pharmaceutical patenting and dumping.